For months I let everyone believe I was fine, but the truth is darker than they know. I carried a secret through my pregnancy, and the father of my child still doesn't know what I did. Welcome to Reddit Toxic Family Telltales channel. New episode every day. When my boyfriend called me disgusting at our own baby shower, something in me snapped. That was the exact moment I decided I wouldn't tell him another thing about my pregnancy. Not the milestones, not the complications, not even when I went into labor. Jerry and I had been together for 4 years, and that shower was supposed to be this beautiful, celebratory moment. He'd chosen this fancy country club, his dream venue, not mine. The chandeliers were glittering, the tablecloths stiff and white, champagne glasses clinking. I was already nervous, but I plastered on a smile. Then my cousin leaned in and asked, "Hey, why are your eyes so red?" I laughed softly, embarrassed but honest. "Oh, this morning I threw up so hard I burst the blood vessels in my eyes." Before anyone else could react, Jerry's voice cut through the room like a whip. "Shut up. Nobody wants to hear about your bloody eyes and vomit. Can't you just be pregnant without making it everyone else's problem? It's revolting." The whole room froze. Forks clinked against plates. Even the waiter stopped moving. His sister tried to speak up, whispering, "Jerry," but he doubled down. "What? Am I supposed to pretend it isn't gross?" Yesterday she went on about her nipples leaking. Last week it was her discharge and cellulite. "We get it. You're pregnant. Your body's doing nasty things." I'll never forget his mother gasping, "Jerry, she's carrying your child." He just shrugged, irritated. "That doesn't mean I need to hear every disgusting thing happening to her. This is supposed to be a happy day and she's killing my appetite." My hands were trembling as I set down my glass. And then I looked him dead in the eyes. "You know what? You're absolutely right. I won't disgust you with another update, Jerry." He blinked, surprised at first, then smug. Finally, "Thank you. See? Not that hard to keep private." And that was it. I shut down. 2 days later, he caught me pulling on my shoes, getting ready for my 20-week anatomy scan. "What time's the appointment?" "I'll drive." I smiled thinly. "Oh, I'm going alone. I wouldn't want to subject you to disgusting pregnancy stuff." His face twisted like he couldn't process it. "But we find out if it's a boy or girl today." "Exactly," I said. "Which means a tech will smear cold gel on my stomach, press a wand into me, and will stare at our baby's private parts on a screen while they measure organs. Pretty gross, right?" "That's different," he argued. "No, it's not. You said pregnancy details revolt you. I'm respecting that." And with that, I ordered an Uber. He tried following me, but when he showed up at the clinic, I made him wait outside. The very next day, his mother called him, crying tears of joy. "It's a boy. He's perfect. And Jerry, you'd better have apologized to her by now." He stormed into our room, furious. "You said the doctor wouldn't know the gender yet?" I shrugged. "I only said that to avoid disgusting you. Didn't want to ruin your appetite." "You can't keep that from me." "I'm not keeping anything," I shot back. "I'm protecting you from all that revolting pregnancy talk. Just like you asked." When friends asked about names, I lit up with excitement, just not with him. Everyone else knew the options: James, Thomas, William. But not Jerry. "Why won't you tell me the names you're considering?" He demanded one night. "Because discussing baby names means talking about the pregnancy. And that's off limits. Your rules, remember?" He thought I was insane. But really, I was just giving him exactly what he wanted. At 28 weeks, things got scary. My feet swelled so much they left dents like memory foam, and black spots clouded my vision. I went to the hospital alone. They diagnosed me with preeclampsia and admitted me. I texted my family, his family, even our friends. Everyone except Jerry. He only found out when his brother called asking why he wasn't there. "You're in the hospital? And you didn't tell me?" Jerry demanded. I looked at him coldly. "Medical details about pregnancy are TMI, remember? You said so yourself. What if you looked at me, called me disgusting again? The stress could have made me lose the baby." For once, he went silent. At 36 weeks, the doctors scheduled a C-section. And again, I told everyone except Jerry. His sister ended up breaking the news. Jerry called me, panicked. "Tuesday? You're having our son on Tuesday?" "Yep. Didn't want to disgust you with the part about cutting through my abdomen layers and pulling a baby out of my uterus. I need to request time off." "Why?" I snapped. "You don't want to see gross pregnancy stuff. And birth? That's the ultimate pregnancy update. Blood, amniotic fluid, the placenta. You hate all that, remember?" At dinner, his mom begged me to let him come. Jerry sat across from me, practically in tears. "I know I messed up. I'm sorry. But I need to be there." I just shrugged. "You said every disgusting thing happening to me. Well, birth is exactly that." The morning of my C-section, I quietly called an Uber while Jerry showered. As they prepped me for surgery, I texted him, "Having the baby now. Don't want to disgust you with the details. Talk later." When I woke up, Jerry was already in the room, wild-eyed. "You didn't tell me you were leaving. This is the problem." I stared at him, numb. "Jerry, I just came out of life-threatening surgery. I just had our son. And your first words are about you." He went pale. I missed my son's first moments." "It's fine," I said coldly. "I'm sure it was all revolting anyway." The nurse, who knew everything, shot him a look of pure contempt. "Oh, so you're the father who thinks pregnancy is gross. Never had one of those before." Jerry sank into a chair, then bolted for the door. I called his name twice, but he didn't stop. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone in that sterile room, machines beeping around me. The nurse muttered under her breath, adjusting my four. Something about men who dish it out but can't take it. I tried to sit up, but the pain sliced through me like fire. She helped me shift, but all I could do was stare at that empty doorway. 20 minutes later, they wheeled in the bassinet. My son, wrapped in a striped blue and white blanket, face scrunched up like a tiny old man. His little fingers twitched, grasping at air. As I cradled him against my chest, my phone buzzed. Jerry's mom. Her voice was frantic. Why is Jerry at my house sobbing and refusing to tell me what happened? I swallowed hard, staring down at the tiny life in my arms. Because, I said flatly, he walked out right after I woke up from surgery. The line went silent. Then, in a trembling voice, she whispered, I'm on my way. And I sat there, clutching my baby, waiting, wondering what Jerry's mother would say when she saw it for herself. About an hour later, I heard a soft knock at the door. A woman with a clipboard stepped inside, introduced herself as a hospital social worker, and pulled up a chair right next to my bed. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, as she started asking questions. Did I feel safe at home? Did I have people I could count on once I left the hospital? I swallowed hard and started from the very beginning, the baby shower, Jerry calling me disgusting in front of everyone, the way he sneered at every symptom I shared. I told her how I'd kept him out of appointments, how he missed the birth because I couldn't trust him not to belittle me in the middle of surgery. She listened quietly, pen scratching against her clipboard, only nodding now and then. Finally, she looked me in the eye and said, emotional abuse during pregnancy is serious. We need to make sure you and your baby have the support you deserve. Her words hit me like a weight off my chest. Someone was finally saying it out loud. Just then, the door opened again. Jerry's mom rushed in, eyes already brimming with tears. The second she saw her grandson in my arms, she broke down. She reached out, trembling, and brushed her fingers against his tiny hand. Then she looked at me, tears spilling down her cheeks. Jerry told me everything, she whispered. What he said, what he did. I'm disgusted with my own son. I held her gaze for a moment before she asked, almost pleading, can I still be part of his life? Even if you and Jerry don't work out? Without hesitation, I placed the baby in her arms. Of course. You're his grandmother. The social worker made another note and said she'd check back tomorrow. And then it was just us, me, my baby, and Jerry's mom holding him like he was the most precious thing she'd ever seen. The second day in the hospital, my phone turned into a weapon. Buzz after buzz after buzz, Jerry. First, he was apologizing, begging to see the baby. Then he was furious, accusing me of keeping his son from him. 5 minutes later, back to desperate promises, I'll change. I'll do anything. Please. The messages poured in, frantic and relentless, switching from love bombing to rage and back again. My chest felt tight every time the screen lit up. Finally, the nurse noticed the stress etched across my face. She took my phone gently from my hands, showed me how to turn on Do Not Disturb, only allowing emergency calls. You need to heal, she said firmly. Not deal with his drama. Before I could leave the hospital, the staff told me they couldn't discharge me until they confirmed I had safe housing and someone to help me. I couldn't even lift anything heavier than my baby, let alone climb stairs or cook for myself. That's when Jerry's sister called. She offered to stay with me for the first week to help me recover. And she made it clear, Jerry would be staying at their mom's house, so I wouldn't have to see him. Relief washed over me. I said yes. On discharge day, I was signing papers when the phone at the nurse's station rang. Security. Jerry was downstairs with flowers, trying to come up. But his name wasn't on my approved list. Do you want him allowed in? The nurse asked. I didn't even hesitate. No. So he left the flowers at the desk with a note. The nurse handed it to me, but I didn't even look at it, just shoved it in my discharge folder with the rest of the paperwork. Jerry's sister pulled up to take me home. I sat in the back with my son strapped in his tiny car seat, staring at him the whole ride while my stomach incision ached with every bump in the road. Walking back into the house felt eerie, like I was stepping into someone else's life. The nursery Jerry and I had painted together was perfect, soft colors, matching furniture, a little mobile over the crib. But the air felt hollow. Like all the warmth had been drained out. Jerry's sister helped me up the stairs, steadying me as I clutched the banister, every step sending fire through my abdomen. She'd already stocked the fridge, unpacked in the guest room. She was ready to move in, ready to help. And Jerry? He was across town, hiding at his mother's house. Running. The days blurred together. Pain radiated through my body, I could barely walk to the bathroom. And then my milk came in. Day 3. My chest was swollen, hard, burning. I sat on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down my face as I tried to pump through the pain. Buzz. 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 My phone again. Jerry. Can I come see the baby? Please. I'll only stay a few minutes. I stared at the message, fingers trembling, and finally typed back, I need to focus on healing. I'll contact you when I'm ready. Seconds later, more messages. 5 in a row. I didn't read them. Just swiped them away and deleted the notifications. 2 days later, it was time for the baby's first pediatrician appointment. His name was on the insurance, so I had no choice but to text him the date and time. I kept it cold, factual, just the details, nothing about how the baby was doing or how badly my body hurt. Within minutes, he replied, Can I come? Can I drive you? I told him no, that his sister was taking us. He kept texting anyway, paragraphs of begging, promises, guilt trips. I turned off read receipts and ignored every message that wasn't strictly necessary. At the appointment, the waiting room buzzed with the sound of crying newborns and exhausted parents. I balanced paperwork on my knee with one hand while cradling my son with the other. When we were called back, the nurse weighed him, measured him, and the doctor started asking about family medical history. She looked at me gently. We'll need information from the father's side too. I froze. As much as I wanted to shut him out completely, I couldn't erase his existence from our son's medical chart. So I texted him. Need your family's health history. His reply came instantly, paragraphs of information, every condition, every allergy. And then, of course, I can come to future appointments. Just say the word. The doctor noticed my hands shaking as I typed. She glanced at me, concern in her eyes. Do you have support at home? I swallowed hard and told her the truth. She handed me a stack of pamphlets, single-parent resources, postpartum groups, phone numbers I could call in the middle of the night if things got overwhelming. That evening back home, Jerry's mom called. She didn't ask about Jerry, didn't press me about forgiving. She just asked, can I come help with the night feed? At 9 o'clock sharp, she arrived with her overnight bag. At 3 in the morning, she was the one rocking my baby, feeding him, while I finally closed my eyes. She never once brought up Jerry, unless I did first. All she focused on was the baby, the bottles, the laundry. And for the first time in days, I felt something close to peace. On my 5th day home, I finally pulled out the envelope tucked between my hospital papers, the one Jerry left with the flowers. I hadn't wanted to look, but curiosity gnawed at me. Inside was a letter, 3 pages long. His handwriting was messy, rushed, almost desperate. He admitted everything. He said he was ashamed of how he treated me at the shower, ashamed of calling my pregnancy disgusting when I was literally growing his child. He wrote about failing me as a partner, about abandoning me when I needed him most. For a moment, I just sat there staring at the words. Then I folded the letter back up and shoved it into the drawer with my discharge papers. Because at that point, words didn't matter. Actions did. Later that day, Jerry's sister was changing the baby on the nursery table when she casually mentioned something that made me stop in my tracks. Jerry had started seeing a therapist. Twice a week. I froze. Jerry? Therapy? This was the same man who used to laugh and say therapy was for weak people who couldn't handle life on their own. But his sister explained he didn't have a choice. Their mom made it a condition of him staying at her house. She even paid for the sessions herself to make sure he went. I didn't know what to feel, shock, maybe a flicker of hope, but I quickly pushed it down. Therapy or not, my incision was still healing and I had a newborn to care for. Jerry's choices didn't erase the pain he caused. 3 days later, I woke up drenched in sweat, my skin burning. The thermometer blinked back at me, 101 degrees. My heart sank. Infection. I called my doctor in a panic, and Jerry's mom rushed me to urgent care while his sister stayed behind with the baby. Sitting in that waiting room, every heartbeat pulsed painfully through my incision. The doctor examined me, found a small infection where one stitch hadn't dissolved properly, and started me on antibiotics. She also asked about my stress levels, warning me that too much stress could slow my recovery. My voice cracked as I admitted things were complicated at home with the baby's father. She gave me a referral for a therapist who specialized in postpartum issues and relationship trauma. It felt like she saw right through me. Within 2 days, the fever broke, but the exhaustion, the weight of it all, lingered. 2 weeks after giving birth, Jerry's sister handed me another envelope. This one thick, neatly typed, clearly crafted with help from his therapist. Inside was a formal letter requesting a mediated discussion about co-parenting. It used words like accountability, repair, and taking responsibility for harmful behaviors. It didn't sound like Jerry at all. I set it aside and called a family law office instead. I wasn't about to walk blind into mediation without knowing my rights. Climbing the stairs to that law office on the 3rd floor nearly broke me. I had to stop twice to catch my breath, clutching my healing stomach. But when I finally sat across from the lawyer, I spilled everything. From the baby shower humiliation to him walking out of the hospital room, to the way he kept demanding updates while accusing me of shutting him out. She scribbled notes on a yellow legal pad, her pen moving faster the more I talked. Then she looked up at me and said, "His behavior? That's emotional abuse. And the fact that he abandoned you during birth? That will absolutely factor into custody." She helped me build a timeline, every cruel comment, every absence, every message. We printed out screenshots of his texts and organized them by date into a thick folder. Seeing it laid out like that was jarring. A clear pattern of neglect, blame, and manipulation. By the end, she told me I had strong grounds for primary custody, maybe even supervised visitation if I wanted. She explained the difference between joint and sole legal custody, how physical custody schedules worked for breastfeeding newborns. 2 hours later, I walked out knowing my rights. And for the first time, I felt like I had power again. I texted Jerry's sister, telling her I'd meet with him and a mediator once I was 4 weeks postpartum, when I could physically handle sitting for an hour. Jerry immediately started blowing up my phone. "Can we meet sooner? Please. I'll do anything." I ignored him. Forwarded everything straight to my lawyer. Then I picked up my baby and fed him, because that was what actually mattered. Jerry's mom kept coming over 3 nights a week, helping with night feedings. She never pressured me to forgive her son. Never guilt-tripped me. She just cooked meals, held the baby while I showered, folded laundry one-handed while I nursed. She felt less like my mother-in-law and more like my own mom. The days blurred into feedings and diaper changes. Slowly, my body started to heal. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was Jerry's brother. He asked if he could meet his nephew. Alone. No, Jerry. I appreciated the respect in that. So the next day, he showed up with a stuffed elephant. He cradled the baby so carefully, like he was holding glass. He told me Jerry talked about the baby constantly at work, but admitted he knew he'd messed up. He didn't make excuses. Didn't push me. Just focused on being a good uncle, snapping photos like he was already proud. After he left, my cousin, the same one from the baby shower, arrived with 2 bags of groceries. She put everything away, then sat with me while I nursed. She reminded me of the strength it took to stand up to Jerry at the shower, when I was already so vulnerable. Most people would have just cried, she said. But you? You protected yourself and your baby. Her words sank deep. By the 3rd week, I started pumping so others could help with feedings. Naturally, Jerry's mom took the dreaded 3 a.m. shift, rocking the baby while I got a few precious hours of sleep. One night, as she washed bottles, she mentioned Jerry had asked about the feeding schedule. But she told him gently, firmly, that's for her to share when she's ready. She never crossed my boundaries. Never pushed me. At 4 weeks postpartum, I finally went to see the therapist the pediatrician referred me to. I sat on that couch and sobbed for almost the entire hour. I told her this wasn't the motherhood I imagined. I thought I'd have a partner beside me for the sleepless nights, the appointments, the milestones. Instead, I was doing it alone, with his family filling in the cracks he'd left. The therapist listened. She told me my grief was real, that I wasn't just mourning a broken relationship, but the partner I thought I had. She said my anger, my sadness, my overwhelm, they were all normal. And she reminded me that Jerry's cruelty wasn't just mean words. It was emotional abuse. Abuse that put me and my baby at risk. When I got home from that session, Jerry's sister was waiting with another envelope. Inside were photos of a certificate. Proof that Jerry had enrolled in a 12-week parenting program. For a brief second, something cracked inside me. Maybe he was really trying. Maybe. But then the memory hit me, his voice echoing in that country club. Your body is doing nasty things. You're revolting. The certificate slipped from my fingers and went straight into the folder my lawyer had started. Evidence. Nothing more. Because until Jerry proved otherwise, all I had were words. 2 more weeks passed in the same blur. Feedings, diaper changes, long nights with Jerry's mom rocking the baby at 3 a.m. while I tried to rest. My body was still healing, and when the mediation date we'd originally set for 4 weeks postpartum came around, I still couldn't sit through an hour-long meeting. We pushed it back to 6 weeks. Finally, that day came. I drove myself downtown to the mediator's office, nerves twisting in my stomach the whole way. Jerry was already there when I walked in. And honestly, he looked rough. His clothes hung loose on him, dark circles etched deep under his eyes, like he hadn't been sleeping or eating. It was jarring to see him like that, especially after weeks of his mother and sister stepping in to fill every gap he left behind. I couldn't help but wonder what they really thought of him. Did they resent his absence as much as I did? Or were they quietly hoping he'd grow into the role he'd abandoned? When we sat down, Jerry opened his mouth to speak first, but the mediator stopped him. You need to listen before you respond. So I started. I told them how that baby shower had destroyed something inside me, how his public humiliation made me feel worthless and disgusting for experiencing normal pregnancy symptoms. I described the morning I threw up so hard my eye vessels burst, and how instead of concern, he sneered and called it revolting. I told them about going to the hospital alone with preeclampsia, terrified for my baby, because I couldn't trust him not to look at my swollen feet and vision problems and call me gross. I said the words out loud. I couldn't trust him with my medical care, because he made it clear my pregnant body disgusted him. For once, Jerry sat there and actually listened. No interruptions. No excuses. Just quiet. When I finished, the mediator turned to him. Do you want to respond? Jerry's voice shook. He apologized. No excuses, no deflection. He admitted he was selfish, cruel, that he let his personal discomfort override basic compassion for the person he claimed to love. He said he understood now that pregnancy was hard and terrifying, and he'd made it worse by shaming me. He admitted flat out that he failed me when I needed him most. The mediator pressed him. What specific changes are you making? That's when Jerry pulled out a notebook. He laid out therapy sessions twice a week with a counselor who specialized in emotional abuse recovery. He showed receipts for parenting classes he'd already been attending for 3 weeks. He even pulled out a stack of books, pregnancy, trauma, postpartum recovery, dog-eared and highlighted. He said, I know words mean nothing. I can't undo what I did. I'm not asking for forgiveness or even unsupervised visits. All I want is a chance to show I can change. And I'll prove it through actions, not promises. I stared at him, trying to process the fact that he sounded like a completely different person. The mediator guided us into building a framework, supervised visits, 1 hour twice a week at his mom's house. Jerry nodded without a fight, writing it all down in his notebook. I was almost stunned by the lack of pushback. We worked out details, pickup times, supplies he needed ready. I listed formula brands, diaper sizes, emergency numbers. He snapped photos of everything with his phone. His mom agreed to supervise and send me updates, which eased some of the knot in my chest. The first visit was set for the following week, when I'd be 5 weeks postpartum. That morning, my nerves were shot. I packed and repacked the diaper bag 3 times, wrote out feeding instructions, even though Jerry's mom had raised 2 kids already. When I handed my baby over at her front door, my hands were shaking so badly she had to steady them. Jerry was sitting on the couch, looking like he might break in half. His mom took the baby gently and I left, heart hammering, parking my car just down the street. For the entire hour, I stared at my phone. Every buzz made me jump. His mom sent photos, Jerry holding the baby with both hands, supporting his head perfectly. Another of Jerry gazing down at him with this stunned expression, half awe, half terror. The baby looked peaceful, asleep in his arms. When the hour was up, I walked back inside. Jerry handed the baby back immediately. No comments, no asking for more time. Just silence. The second visit went the same. By the third, I finally managed to drive all the way home instead of lurking in my car like a nervous wreck. After 3 successful visits, Jerry, through the mediator, asked if we could extend the time. I thought about it for 2 days, then agreed to increase to 2 hours. But the supervision stayed until he finished his programs. Jerry didn't argue. He accepted every condition. At my 6-week postpartum checkup, I finally felt physically stronger. The doctor examined my incision, it had healed well. She cleared me for exercise, but when she asked how I was doing emotionally, I told her the truth. Co-parenting with someone who'd hurt me so deeply was harder than surgery recovery ever could be. She handed me resources for support groups and reminded me, take care of your mind too. That afternoon, Jerry's sister stopped by with groceries. While unpacking, she told me Jerry hadn't missed a single therapy session. Not one. He'd even started journaling his feelings. I almost laughed at the absurdity. This was the man who used to mock journaling as whiny. But she said he seemed committed. Really trying to understand why he'd been so cruel. She didn't tell me to forgive him. She didn't push. She just wanted me to know. 2 weeks later, when the baby turned 2 months old, Jerry sent another request, through the mediator, not directly. He asked to attend the next pediatrician appointment. I sat with that for a long time. Finally, I agreed, but with clear boundaries. He could listen, take notes, ask respectful questions. But I made all final decisions. The mediator relayed my terms and Jerry accepted immediately. At the appointment, I checked in early. Jerry slipped in quietly, sat in the corner chair instead of next to me. When the doctor came in, she treated us like any other parents. Jerry asked questions about milestones, wrote down vaccination schedules, nodded thoughtfully. He never once undermined me or made a single snide comment. At the end, the pediatrician smiled and said, "You two seem to be co-parenting well." The words nearly knocked the breath out of me. If only she knew. Afterward, Jerry thanked me softly for letting him come and left. No lingering, no overstepping. Just gone. Later that week, Jerry's mom came over to help with laundry. As she folded tiny onesies, she told me something I never expected. I failed Jerry, she admitted. I never taught him how to respect women. I made excuses for his behavior over and over. And now I see how much damage that caused. Watching you hold your boundaries, it's teaching me things I should have learned years ago. I'm sorry. I should have stepped in sooner. Her words cut deep. They didn't erase what had happened, but they mattered. For the first time, I realized even she was reckoning with the mess her son had created. And maybe, just maybe, Jerry was too. As the weeks rolled by, something unexpected happened. I started feeling stronger. More confident. I realized Jerry's absence in those early brutal weeks had actually forced me to trust myself. There was no one around to argue with me about whether I should let the baby cry it out, or to second-guess my decision to breastfeed. Every choice, every instinct, it was mine. And when I looked at my son thriving, hitting every milestone, it was proof. I was doing something right. When the baby was 10 weeks old, a message came through the mediator. Jerry had completed his first month of parenting classes, and he wanted to share what he'd learned. But instead of meeting face-to-face, I told him, put it in writing. 2 days later, a thick packet showed up. 12 typed pages. My jaw dropped. He'd gone through everything. Secure attachment, developmental milestones, how stress hormones from pregnancy trauma affect both mother and baby long-term. And then he took it further. He'd actually listed out every cruel thing he said to me during my pregnancy. Each comment, each moment, broken down with research and timestamps. The baby shower humiliation had its own page. He explained how public shaming during pregnancy could cause lasting psychological scars. The anatomy scan, he wrote about how excluding fathers from gender reveals could damage bonding, something he admitted he had already destroyed. And then came the preeclampsia section. That one made me sit down. He'd printed medical studies, highlighted mortality rates, cited statistics about women who died from it. And suddenly it hit him, really hit him, that I could have died. Alone. In a hospital. While he was at home sulking about not being included. 2 days later, I was in therapy, pacing the room, clutching those papers in my hands. My therapist watched me and finally asked, "Is holding on to this anger worth the toll it's taking on you?" I broke down. I cried about how unfair it all was. That I had to be the bigger person. That I had to hold it together, even after being humiliated and abandoned. She reminded me, co-parenting wasn't about punishing Jerry. It was about our son. Her words hurt. Because I knew she was right. 3 months postpartum crept up faster than I expected. The mediator suggested expanding visits to include 1 unsupervised hour. My stomach flipped at the thought, but Jerry had gone 8 full weeks of supervised visits without a single issue. We picked a coffee shop. Big windows. Neutral ground. I parked right outside, close enough to see through the glass. My hands shook as I handed Jerry the baby carrier. His fingers trembled when he took it too. I sat in my car for the entire 60 minutes, crying so hard at times I couldn't see the clock. Every few minutes I glanced inside. Jerry was carefully feeding the baby a bottle, walking him around when he fussed. At exactly 1 hour, my phone buzzed. Jerry was outside waiting. He thanked me 3 times. Waited until I buckled the baby in before walking away. That night, a photo came through. Our son asleep on Jerry's chest. The message read, "Thank you for trusting me." Something shifted inside me. Not forgiveness, but the first tiny crack in the wall I'd built. The next morning, Jerry's mom came over with groceries. As she unpacked, she mentioned finding medical textbooks spread all over Jerry's apartment, preeclampsia, C-sections, postpartum complications. She said he'd been studying what my body went through. And when he read about HELLP syndrome, he cried. He couldn't believe I'd survived all of that without him. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about all of this was a little too perfect. The therapy receipts. The notebooks. The medical research. The parenting classes. It felt like Jerry was checking every box on a list. Was it genuine change? Or just a performance designed to win his way back in? Through the mediator, Jerry's therapist suggested a parallel parenting activity. Something neutral where we could both show up for our son without having to interact much with each other. A baby swim class at the community center. I agreed. We showed up separately, stayed on opposite ends of the locker room, and entered the pool from different sides. The instructor treated us like any other parents. The second the baby's toes hit the water, he squealed with joy, kicking his little legs like he'd just discovered flying. Other parents smiled. I caught Jerry grinning too when our son splashed himself in the face and giggled. For 30 minutes, we weren't enemies. We weren't fighting. We were just parents keeping our baby safe in the water. And when it was over, our son fell asleep instantly, worn out from the excitement. For once, the awkwardness felt worth it. For months postpartum, another letter arrived. This one from Jerry's parenting program instructor. She wrote that in 15 years of teaching, she'd never had a student more engaged. She said Jerry asked thoughtful questions, stayed after class helping other dads, and showed genuine remorse. She said, in her professional opinion, his dedication to breaking toxic patterns was authentic. She even enclosed his final presentation. The title? Accountability and the Harm of Toxic Masculinity During Pregnancy. The custody agreement meeting came next. We sat in a lawyer's office, both of us with attorneys present. Jerry didn't fight me. Not once. He signed everything. Primary custody went to me, gradually increasing visitation rights for him. He agreed to continue therapy for a year minimum, to comply with any additional court requirements. When child support was calculated, Jerry shocked everyone by agreeing to pay 20% above the number. His lawyer explained Jerry had already taken a second weekend job at a warehouse just to cover expenses. And for the first time in months, money for formula, diapers, medical co-pays, and even a college fund started appearing in my account. Jerry was working 60 hours a week. And according to his mom, he never once complained about being tired when he showed up for visits. The change didn't come all at once. It built slowly, moment by moment, visit by visit. But around 4.5 months, something happened that I'll never forget. During a handoff, Jerry leaned in and said softly, "Hey, buddy." And just like that, our son's whole body lit up. He turned his tiny head toward the sound of his father's voice and reached his arms out, eager, trusting, innocent. My heart shattered and mended all at once. I watched Jerry's face crumple as he scooped him up, holding him with this mixture of awe and grief. Whatever had passed between us, whatever pain I still carried, our son didn't know any of that. He just wanted his dad. 2 weeks later, Jerry sent word through his sister with a new request. Instead of funneling everything through his family, could we use a co-parenting app? I hesitated, but curiosity won out. While the baby napped against my chest, I downloaded the app and set up my profile. Within minutes, his first message came through, questions about feeding schedules, sleep patterns, routine. I typed back the basics, even attached photos of the formula brand and diaper size. His reply was simple, "Thank you," followed by a promise to read every pediatrician note I'd uploaded. The app organized everything, timestamps, categories for medical info, schedules, expenses. His mom told me later Jerry spent hours studying the app each night, memorizing our son's routines. At the next pickup, Jerry showed up at my door with the diaper bag packed perfectly, every item from my list checked off. For the first time in weeks, he looked me in the eye. He said, voice steady, "I know you may never forgive me. I get that. But I promise you, I'll spend the rest of my life being the father he deserves." And for once, it didn't sound desperate or defensive. It sounded real. I nodded, handed over the baby. Our son immediately grabbed Jerry's nose and laughed. That week in therapy, we talked about growth and boundaries. My therapist pulled out her notes from my first session, 5 months earlier, when I could barely string 2 words together through tears. She smiled and pointed out how far I'd come. Back then you were surviving. Now, you're thriving. She reminded me the boundaries I'd built weren't just about protecting myself, they were teaching my son what healthy love looks like. Her words stayed with me all the way home, where I found Jerry's mom waiting with a pot of homemade soup. She'd been showing up twice a week since the birth, no matter what. Over dinner, she admitted she was grateful I'd given her a grandson, and even more grateful I'd given Jerry the wake-up call he so badly needed. She squeezed my hand, eyes watery, and whispered that I felt like the daughter she never had. The 6-month pediatrician appointment arrived before I knew it. I walked into the waiting room to find Jerry already there, flipping through a stack of parenting magazines. We followed the nurse back together. The doctor weighed our son, measured his little body, checked his milestones. She smiled and said, "He's perfect. You're both doing a wonderful job." For the first time since that awful baby shower, Jerry and I shared a genuine smile over our son's head. The moment felt fragile, strange, but not forced. Afterward, walking to our cars, Jerry mentioned his therapy. His counselor thought he was making real progress. And that night, sitting in my apartment with my baby in my arms, I realized something. This life, my life, wasn't what I'd imagined. But it was mine. The walls were lined with photos of family and friends who had stepped up when I needed them most. The nursery was organized exactly how I wanted it. My schedule flowed around the support system I'd built. Jerry was becoming a good father, even if he'd failed as a partner. And my boundaries made sure it stayed that way. Then came the news I didn't expect. Jerry's sister called, voice bubbling with surprise. Jerry had started volunteering at a pregnancy resource center, teaching expectant fathers about supporting their partners. Apparently, he stood in front of rooms full of men and used his own failures as examples. He told them about the damage careless words could cause, the harm in dismissing what a woman's body goes through. His therapist had suggested it as part of his accountability, but the coordinator said his honesty was striking. 6 months had passed since that nightmare of a baby shower. 6 months since Jerry humiliated me in front of everyone. And yet here we were. Our son was thriving. He had 2 parents who put him first, even if we couldn't be together. Jerry showed up to every visit, every appointment, with consistency I never thought possible. He read every book his therapist recommended, worked 60-hour weeks without complaint, and funneled every extra dollar into diapers, formula, and even a college fund. His family became my strongest allies, no matter what happened between Jerry and me. The co-parenting app kept our communication organized and safe. Therapy helped me process the trauma and rebuild on my own terms. My friends, the same ones who saw me humiliated at that country club, now told me they'd never seen someone handle such a storm with more grace. The life I had wasn't the life I planned. But it was built on boundaries. On growth. On respect that had been earned the hard way. And as I rocked my son that night, feeling his tiny breath against my chest, I realized, this new life was stronger than the one I'd lost. Thanks for watching. Today's train wreck is over, but tomorrow's ride is already on track. Subscribe so you don't miss it.